One of the most powerful things about Claude Code is the ability that it gives you to create multiple different agents that work on separate tasks at the exact same time. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like in the context of preparing for litigation. Even if you're a total beginner to Claude, Claude Code, and Claude Cowork, I'm going to show you how you can download Claude, get it on your computer, how you can organize your files so Claude can use them. I'm going to show you how you can teach Claude your firm's processes, and then how you can create and manage a team of agents to help you prepare for litigation. If you don't know who I am, my name is Masai, and I work directly with small law firms to help them build out automations, workflows, and AI agents like the ones you're about to see in this video. So let's get right into it. So this is our starting point. We have this documents folder here with a bunch of different documents relating to an accident, basically. And what we want to be able to do is to put together a comprehensive demand letter package. And so we have documents here about incident and liability documents, emergency, initial medical records, all these documents, right? Probably 50 to 60 documents we have here. And we want to be able to go over and do all the things you normally do, where we'd create a medical chronology, we'd assess the total amount of the damages, and also go over the depositions as well and be able to digest those depositions and give back summaries of these depositions that we have here. So in order to do that, we're going to have one main agent that's responsible for generating the demand package, and we're going to have three sub-agents. We're going to have a sub-agent for accounting for damages, we're going to have a sub-agent that is going to create the medical chronologies, and we're going to have another sub-agent that's going to be handling all the depositions in our folder. Okay, so first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start these sub-agents working, and then as they run in the background, I'll explain to you guys how you can download Claude Code, how you can get set up, and how you can actually set up something like this for yourselves to help you guys out in your legal work. So on the right-hand side is where I'm going to be running Claude Code. And then over here on the left-hand side, we have this really cool visualizer that lets us see our agents and what they're doing. So I'll zoom in. This agent here is idle, obviously, because we don't have anything running yet. But as we create the different agents, we'll see them pop up in here and start actually doing work for us. And so in order to start Claude, I'm just going to type over here on the right-hand side, Claude, and I'm going to put the permissions flag, which just means that Claude is going to be able to take actions without having to ask for my permission for everything. And what I have also is a specific prompt for each agent. If you remember, we have our three different sub-agents, our damages accountant agent, our medcron agent, and our deposition digester agent. All three of these agents have specific prompts. And so I'm just going to grab the prompt from the damages accountant agent, and I'm going to get it started. And so here's the full prompt for the damages accountant agent. We're giving it a role, telling it what it is. We're giving it an overview of the case, giving it some of the documents that it has available to do research on. And then we're also finally telling it what the final outputs are that we needed to produce, right? And giving it some guidelines as well. Obviously, you can go into as much depth as you want to in this prompt to control the action of your agent. But I'm just going to go ahead and copy this entire prompt. I'm going to come back into Claude Code. I'm going to paste that entire prompt. And I'm going to set this agent working. So you see, we have one agent here that just popped in, and that agent's going to start working for us. While that agent's working, I'm going to open up another terminal. So you see now we have two terminals. We have one terminal here that's already working, and we have a second one here. And I'm going to do the same exact thing with the next prompts for the next agent. Our next agent is going to be the medcron agent. I'm going to go ahead and grab the prompt for that agent. Same deal here. We're giving it the role. We're giving it information about the case. We're giving it the documents available, and we're giving it the final outputs that we needed to produce. Again, obviously, you can make any changes to this as you need to, and you'll also be able to find all these prompts in the description of this video if you want to reproduce this exact use case. But we're going to copy this prompt. We're going to go back over into Claude Code. We're going to do the same thing again, where we call Claude, and we have it skip permissions, so it won't need to ask us for permission for everything. And then we're just going to go ahead and paste this in. And then there we go. So we have another agent that's now working. So we have these two agents that are now working. It's letting us know this agent is using agent. If you hover over the agent, you can see what it's actually doing. So this agent's doing some reading, and then it's going to go ahead and produce those outputs for us. And then we're going to start the third agent, the third sub-agent. So again, we're going to go Claude, -- dangerously -- skip -- permissions. That's going to start Claude up for us. And then we're going to grab the third prompt that we need. So we got the damages accountant, we got the medcron, and we're going to grab the deposition digester now. So we have the prompt here. That's just giving us the role, giving us some information about the case, giving it, again, the documents that are available, etc., right? And all the things that we needed to output at the end. And all I'm going to do is grab this prompt, copy it, come over to Claude Code, and go ahead and paste it. And so now we have all three of these agents here that are actually going off and doing the work for us. And once they're done, we can come back, look at their outputs, and then we can have our final agent go and actually create that demand package for us. Now that we have our agents running in the background, let's just quickly cover what Claude Code is and how it works. We have a few different components here. So we have the model, which is the brain. We have the system prompt, the rule book, the context, the tools, and then the loop or the harness. And so the brain is the same brain that you'll be familiar with if you've used any other chatbot. If you've used ChatGPT, for example, you'll know you can go in, you can ask questions. For example, I can go in and ask ChatGPT to tell me about whales, and it'll tell me about whales, right? Claude is the same thing. I can ask it to tell me about whales, and it'll tell me about whales. The thing about the chat interface is it's extremely limited because you're basically the only thing you can do is have a conversation. You can go back and forth with it, you can ask questions, etc., but it can't actually really do things for you, right? What we're doing with something like Claude Code is we're taking this extremely powerful brain that's in Claude and we're giving it access to files and giving it the ability to actually take actions for us. So we have the brain is the first component. In this case, that's Claude. Then we have the system prompt. And the system prompt is basically the rule book or the guidelines that our agent is going to follow, right? And so in order to do that, you normally write something called a claude.md file. And .md just means that it's markdown, which is a special style of text file. But you basically just define in natural English how you want your agent to act. Here's an example of a claude.md file that could be used potentially if you want to use Claude Code for a law firm. You just want to define the basic principles and rules that your Claude Code agent is going to follow. So we have the purpose here, the non-negotiable rules, the required workflow. These are just the high-level rules that your Claude Code agent is going to follow all the time as it's doing work for you, right? And so Claude is always going to reference this file as the basis for how it should act in any given situation. So we've covered the brain, which is Claude, which is an LLM just like you'd be familiar with in ChatGPT or Google Gemini or any other chatbot that you've talked to. We've covered the system prompt, which is the claude.md file, which is this right here, which I can show you a visualizer of this here. It's just English language that's giving it rules that it's going to follow all the time. And then the other thing it has as well is tools. Tools are basically the arms and legs of the agent that allow it to actually take actions on our computer. And so that allows it to create images or to search the internet or to use the terminal and make changes to files, everything that allows our agent to go from just a chatbot to actually taking action are going to be considered tools. And these are really powerful because you can start to create your own tools for your agent. So you can give it access to, if you have LexisNexis, for example, and you have access to an API key, you could create a tool that allows it to search that legal database, for example. So if we come back into our agents here that we started a little while ago, we'll be able to see that they actually use tools here, right, to take action. So where it's writing here, it's using the tool. Where it's reading, it's using the tool. And that's allowing it to read the files that we have on our computer. So those are all the things in here that allow our agents to actually take action. And then the context. These are all the files that we give it access to. So whenever you use Claude Code or Claude Cowork, you're typically going to be opening a folder on your computer and giving it access to that folder. So the context that it's going to have access to is going to be everything that's in this folder. So currently, my Claude agents can read everything that's in this folder. They can read all the documents that we have. They can read the agent prompts. They can read the output files, the prompts files. All this here is going to be considered context. A really good idea is to create a file similar to this file, but you would probably want to call it whatever your firm name is .md, and that would give your agent a background of what your firm is, how your firm operates, etc., etc. So it could always have access to that to sort of guide the way that it acts. So context just means the files and the data, the information that your agent has access to at any given point in time. And then the loop here. So the loop is also called the agent harness. And basically what this is it's what allows Claude to work for extended periods of time. And this is based off of the React loop. And so the React loop is basically this. It's called React because of the RE in reason and then the ACT in act. So basically what an agent does is it thinks about what it should do based on what you tell it to do. So we tell it go and create a medical chronology, right? It thinks about what it should do and then it takes action. So it thinks, okay, I should probably read these documents. And then once it has that thought, it goes and actually takes the action to read the documents, right? And then once it takes the action, it observes what the results were from taking that action, and then it thinks about what it should do in the next step, and then it acts, and then it observes the feedback from that action again, right? And it just loops over this until it's basically completed whatever task you gave it. And so if we look back here at one of our agents, the damages accountant agent, I told it to do all this stuff here, right? And then it went off. This is a thought right here. This white bubble is a thought. It says to itself that it'll start by reading all the case documents. And then here, what it did is it went off and it spun out 7 sub-agents. So we had a main agent, and that agent then created 7 more agents that each read the documents in parallel and reported back. So this is the thought here, and this is the action here, this green bubble here, where we have these agents that were created that went and did all this reading. These are the actions that each of the sub-agents took. And we can see even how many times they use tools as well. And then once it would have gotten the response from those agents, it would have thought about the next step, which it does here, and then tries to take an action. Here's a really powerful thing about agents is that if they take an action and it doesn't work, they just figure out why it didn't work and they try something else, right? So this failed, but then it just tried something else. And then once it realized that it had all the data that it needed, it went ahead and started drafting the artifacts that we needed for it to draft, right? So essentially what the harness is, or the react loop, or the reasoning loop, whatever you want to call it, it just allows an agent to spend a lot of time on a task. So if it has to spend 2 hours, it'll spend 2 hours on a task. If it has to spend 10 hours or a full day on a task, it'll spend the entire day, and it can continue going through this loop of thinking about what it should do and taking actions until it actually has completed the task to full satisfaction. So those are the main components of Claude Code. We have the model, we have the system prompt, we have the tools, we have the context, and we have the loop, or it's also called the agent harness as well. So now that we've covered the fundamentals of Claude Code, it's a good time for us to come back and check up on our sub-agents and see what they've done for us in our file system. So I'm going to go over some of the actions here. We have this prompt, which is what I gave to the damages accountant agent, which is telling it its role, telling it information about the case, telling it which documents to analyze, and telling it finally what output it must produce at the end, right? And then we can see all the actions that it took. It then went and created 7 of its own agents to do research for it, and then it went and it created those output files for us. And so it's also telling us where we can find those files. All 3 damage artifacts have been produced in the output directory. If I come over to my file system, I can come into the output directory, and I can see all of the damage artifacts have been created here. Now, one thing that I'm going to note here is that all these documents are markdown documents. Claude Code has no problem generating also PDFs or docx files or Excel sheets or whatever you need. You'll just have to specify that that's what you want. And then we can see something similar with the medical chronology. It went off and did something similar where it read the documents and then created the documents for us and told us that those documents are in the output folder. And so we can see those documents are here as well. The medical chronology and the medical narrative documents are here. I'll open one of these up quickly so you can see what it produced. But basically it produced this table for us where it has the date, provider, type of visit, findings, diagnoses, this entire table here. Whatever changes you make in the prompt to determine the output are going to affect what the output is, right? So if you want a different type of output, you can just specify the type of output that you want. So here's an example of the chronology that I produced for us after reading all the documents, provider summary, all this stuff, right? And I can open up the damage calculation spreadsheet, and I can see something else pretty similar, right? Past medical expenses, all the stuff that I would have went over and actually built out for us. Having read all the documents, it would create something like this for us. And so we have all these documents in here, right? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the last agent on building the final demand letter package. I'm going to tell it to put it in a different folder for us. And then as that's going, I'm going to show you guys how you can actually go download Claude Code, install it, and run it on your own systems and start doing things like these where you run these agents in parallel to do these more complicated tasks. So I'm going to open up the agent prompt. I'll grab the demand package generator prompt. I'll come back here and then I'll close out these terminals. And you'll see as I close out the terminal, these little agents will disappear, right? So I'll close this out and then that agent's gone. So what I'll do here is bring the terminal back, call Claude again with the permissions flag, and I'll paste the full prompt in here for the demand package generator. We see that agent just popped in and it starts working. And I'm gonna add a note in here to put the final output in a unique folder called demand package. And you can send these little messages to it while it's working, where you can basically steer the direction that it goes, right? So it can see the message and it won't stop the job that it's doing. It'll just see what you said and it'll make sure to make a note of that, right? So That will start now, and then I'm going to show you guys how you can actually install Claude Code yourselves and start doing things like these. So now you guys have everything you need to get started with Claude Code and to also have these little... All right, so how do you actually install Claude Code so you can use it yourself? It's pretty straightforward. You're going to come to this website here, code.claude.com/docs, and then this will give you the full walkthrough of how to get started. Basically, you're just going to copy this exact command. You'll go into your terminal. So if you're on a Mac, you just command space, search for the terminal, and then you just paste that in the terminal. And then it'll run. It'll ask you to sign into your Claude account. So make sure you have a Claude account set up. You'll sign in. One thing you want to make sure of is you want to make sure that you use your account for Claude Code and you don't use an API key, because if you use an API key, it's going to cost you a lot more money than if you just use your subscription. So make sure you use your subscription for Claude Code. And then once you have that set up, then you're going to need an IDE. So you need somewhere that you can manage files and look at files in an integrated development environment. And so there's a free one you can get. You want to install something like VS Code, which you can download if you just go to code.visualstudio.com. So you'll download that. You'll make sure you also have Claude Code downloaded. You'll go through the full setup process for Claude Code. You'll make sure you have Visual Studio Code set up. Then once you have both of those things, all you have to do to get started is create a folder on your computer. You can call this new folder. And then you want to right click on it and then select this new terminal tab at folder. And if you went ahead and installed VS Code, then you can just write in your terminal code and then a space and then period. And then voila, magic. You're going to open up that exact folder. So if you see here, we have this folder here. And we've opened it up on VS Code. Now for the pixel agents, that is a separate extension that you're going to install. So if you want to see the cool agents that actually move around and stuff while you're working with Claude Code, you just come into the extensions and you'll literally just search pixel agents. It's this one here by Pablo De Luca, and you can go ahead and install it, and it will go ahead and spawn up those little agents as you start working with Claude Code, right? So this extension section here is over here on the left-hand side. It's the one with the little squares. Then all you have to do to start working with Claude is open up your terminal. So you'll see up here on the top right, there's this view that's split between top and bottom. You want to select that one, and that will open up your terminal. Once you've opened up your terminal, all you have to do to get started with Claude is just type in Claude. Go ahead and select you trust the folder, and now you're already working with Claude Code. So from here, you can have it generate a PDF, you can have it generate docs. What you want to do is just think of this terminal window here as just a regular chat, except for the fact that this is actually an agent that can take actions for you. If you are the owner of a small law firm and you need help building out automations or agents just like these ones, there's a link you can click on in the description to see how I can help you out with that. So let's get back to the video. So now you guys have everything you need to get started with Claude Code and to also have these little agents up as well so you can build something just like this. So now it's time to check in on the final result from our last master agent, who has gone and created the demand letter, the demand package, settlement value analysis, and evidence index. Again, if I were to go and redo this, I would probably specify that I want PDFs or docx files instead of markdown files, but it's fairly trivial to convert markdown into docx or to convert it into PDF format. So let's go and take a look at the final outputs. Also, you can note that the little note that I made to it to put it in the demand package folder, it took note of that and actually put it in that demand package folder. So let's go and check out the final output. So I can see we now have this demand package folder here. I can open this up, check out the demand letter, the formatting of the demand letter, liability, the collision, police investigation, etc., etc. Full demand letters here. Let's check out the evidence index. Okay, there we go. We have the different exhibits referencing back to the source files and also giving us the location of the source file that we have on our computer. Key content, supports, all this stuff. Okay, so this is the evidence index. I mean, you guys get the idea, right? So we have the other files here as well. What's really interesting is that this starts to get really powerful because you can start to also include things like skills and plugins and all that kind of stuff in all of your individual agents. And so you can start to basically map all your workflows and put all your workflows into different text documents. You could have those text documents in a folder that's within this folder. And then your agents could reference your SOPs to always be able to output things or do research the exact way that you want it done. Don't forget to leave a like if you liked the video, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any more videos like these, and leave a comment down below and let me know what other types of content you guys want to see around AI in the legal field. Thanks a ton for watching.